two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, my name is Noah, and I'm a student at CU Boulder. I'm in the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, where I major in mechanical engineering. I also am in the College of Music, where I major in jazz studies. In the past 4 years, I've been playing music from rock to jazz to funk and a lot of things in between. Studying both engineering and music, I thought it'd be a great idea to try and combine the two by making my own bass from scratch. To start, I made a CAD model of the electric bass that I wanted to build, and from there I was able to pull drawings which allowed me to trace the shape of the body onto the wood. Due to COVID, I primarily used my father's wood shop. This sometimes led to some innovative tool choices. For example, here, since I didn't have proper router bits to make the neck pocket, electronic pocket, or the pickup pockets, I drilled out the area and then cleaned up the pockets with a Dremel tool. Here I laid out some of the components on the body of the bass to check the overall aesthetic. To get desirable contours and rounded edges, I took the body to the sander. For the wood of the body, I decided to use ash. I decided to use ash because it's known to make a very resonant tone out of your bass. Next, I drilled out the pockets for the pickups. The pickups are the electrical component that translates the vibrating strings into the electrical current that creates the electric bass sound that we all know. Next was to make the neck. This process is much more difficult than the body because there is more precision needed to make a playable neck. Here, I cut out a slot for the truss rod to be placed in the middle of the neck underneath the fingerboard. The truss rod is basically a long screw which can bend the steel bar to change the bow of the neck. The truss rod gets permanently placed underneath the fingerboard by gluing the fingerboard and the neck woods together. The fingerboard wood is ebony. I chose this because ebony is a dense wood and thus means a brighter tone. To glue the fingerboard and the neck together, I used wood glue and spread it on both woods while avoiding getting glued in the truss rod. I applied pressure to the wood and let it sit for a day. Here's what the neck looks like before it gets cut into the shape of what the final neck will be. I then cut out the outline of the neck. I used similar dimensions that I measured from the neck of a Fender Precision bass that I have. I did this because I think that this bass neck in particular is one of the most comfortable to play on. I chose the shape of the headstock to look like the number 8. I did this because I thought it fit well with the shape of the body. Now is the time to shape the profile of the neck. I did this using rasps. This part of the process was the most scary for me to do because it is much more of an art than a calculated process. This process involved removing material and then checking by hand to see if it has a good feel to it. Luckily, my 11 years of playing the bass paid off and I was able to get a decent neck profile on this first attempt at neck shaping. I then sanded down the headstocks so that the strings would have a tighter connection to the nut. By hand, I sanded a slight radius to the fingerboard. This makes the fingerboard much easier to play. I also cut out the slot at the top of the fretboard to insert the nut. I then cut the string slots into the nut and began the fretting process. I measured out and marked the fret locations onto the fingerboard. Then I used a fret cutting saw to cut the slots to lay the frets in. To install the frets, I would put superglue into the slots and then hammer in the fret wire to get a strong connection. A strong connection between the frets and the fingerboard causes for less dampening between the strings and the body of the instrument. This creates a very desirable tone. So this is what the final fretwork looks like before some cleaning up and extra sanding. Next was to make the pickups. The pickups are a solenoid in which the strings in the body of the instrument vibrate rod magnets within a coil of wire. This induces a current in the wire, which is sent to the amplifier to create the electric bass tone. These pickups are single coil pickups and are in a P-bass style configuration, which creates a warmer and darker bass tone. To start, I set the rod magnets in a non-conductive material and wrap the magnets with electrical tape to prevent direct contact of the wire to the magnets. This is my setup for winding the pickups. I use this hand drill and a homemade bit to attach the pickup to the drill for winding. The wire used in pickups is very thin, about as thin as hair. This makes it very easy to break. I started with a few winds by hand before I used the drill to do the full wrap. Here you can see my full winding setup. I have the spool on the floor and I use my hands as a guide onto the pickup to get good coverage. Pickups are supposed to have thousands of winds to be effective. This made each pickup take about 30 minutes of winding each. This is my first attempt at the pickup. It didn't work because the wire broke halfway through, but after a number of later attempts, I was finally able to get working pickups. This is what the final pickups looked like. Shown here are the leads soldered onto the beginning and end of the wrap. Next you will see a test to prove that they work. I have the circuit put together and connected to an amp, then I strum a guitar and bring it close to the pickups where the sound is amplified. Nice! Next, we have to pot the pickups. Potting the pickups means dunking them in hot wax and letting them cool. This makes the coil of wire stay in one place and not move around. This greatly diminishes unwanted noise in the pickups. Here I am in my kitchen melting wax on the stove and pouring it over the pickups. Finally, it's time to stain and oil the instrument. I used a natural wood stain to try and keep the natural color, and I used tung oil to help seal the wood. Once it was finished drying, it was time to put it all together. And now for the big reveal. Here it is, completed with all the components assembled, the circuitry wired, and the strings put on. And no build would be complete without a review of its sound. Hi, so this is the final bass, and I just wanted to play it a little bit so you guys could hear it all by itself. So the lower end sounds pretty good, pretty in tune. The lower string is a little bit harder to hear, and I think that's because the pickup is a little bit tilted away from the lowest string. Here's kind of a middle range. So it's a pretty bright sound overall, and it's because of the sort of denser wood I chose. Here's the high range. So, everything sounds pretty good all around. Here it is with the tone all the way off. So it gets really a lot more muddier down there once the tone's all the way off. If you want to hear more of what this bass sounds like, all of the background music that you've been hearing was actually recorded on this bass, so you can just go back and watch this video again.